Brian is wondering if you had any thoughts about the Jimmy Dore TYT dispute and the way Kyle responded to that. Obviously, we covered it here on the Vanguard.
Yeah, I don't know what his most recent response was. I don't know what the beef is right now, but it kind of sucks because I've listened to Jimmy Dore on Rogan, and I've kind of like just dug into like some of the stuff he's done pre-political and just how he was a comedian and stuff. And I thought like I don't know, outside of any of the crazy stuff he said on anything controversial, I've kind of like liked his takes on some stuff. I thought he's kind of quirky, and I think he's funny. And it's weird because when we went out to Rogan, Kyle and me, the first time, Jimmy had like invited Kyle over for like dinner or something like that, or to meet up like after the show, and they seemed like they were friends. And we, for whatever reason, like we couldn't get out to Jimmy. It was kind of like 45 minutes in rush hour traffic, and he like went on this crazy like rant shit. Like he like texted Kyle mad times in a row, like on some, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but on some like you said type of you were gonna come and then you didn't come, and it was on some like high school girlfriend type shit where he was just like going off on Kyle because he didn't show up. So I kind of knew right there that like there's a couple screws that are definitely missing in homie's head.
So you guys weren't able to make it because of the traffic, and Jimmy.
Yeah, like we were getting out of Rogan and it was late, and like he invited us out to his house, and it was kind of like out of the way, and so like we kind of maybe could have made it, but it was kind of also like inconvenienced. It was last minute. So kind of Kyle was just like, hey man, I just don't think it's gonna work out right now. Like, and any normal person would just be like, oh, no problem, dude. Like we'll catch up maybe next time, or like whatever. He just it was very weird how like upset he got.
Petty.
And yeah, it was super petty. And like I had not known Jimmy at the time, and I just knew Kyle, and he's kind of showing me what he's saying. And I was like, yo, who is this dude? Like, he's like, it's not like, your bro. Girl. Like, even my girl, I would be like, yo, you're kind of bugging. So that was very weird. So I kind of knew that he was just a quirky dude, but they were cordial and they were friends, which is
right.
I haven't asked Kyle about it recently, but I'm sure there's no hard feelings. Like, I don't think Kyle has any hard feelings to anybody where he'd be like, I hate that guy, or like, you know, I hope his show fails.
Sure. Well, yeah, because Kyle doesn't seem to be nearly as petty and vindictive.
No, like, dude, anytime I'm in New York and I can't meet up with Kyle, it's like it's whatever. Like, well, I'll see you when I see you type of thing. But like,
of course,
it seemed very weird. And maybe it's to Jimmy where it's like, because he's that type of dude, he maybe doesn't have that many friends. So like he's got his show and he's got his listeners, and those are kind of his friends, but not really.
Right.
So I don't know. I personally, I used to like Jimmy. I would actually listen to some of the stuff he said, and I thought the whole thing that he did with the squad and going after them on the like the no voting thing, was that a thing? You know what I'm talking about?
The force the vote?
Yeah, I thought force the vote was
yeah. Oh, yeah. When Zach and I started our channel, a lot of the content we were making was very pro Jimmy Dore. We were making a lot of videos about how correct he was about force the vote. And I think we were 100% on our coverage on that. Yeah. He was 100% correct on force the vote. And there's a lot of other things that I agree with Jimmy Dore on as well. I've been a fan of Jimmy going back to his TYT days. So, yeah, you're preaching to the choir there, man. I love Jimmy for the longest time.
Did he go sour or something? Because, again, I think his criticism of TYT was valid outside of the whole stuff with Anna. That I don't like. That was weird with the dress and she said hi and whatever.
It got ugly for sure.
Yeah, that was weird. But like calling them out because they've kind of, I do feel like they've kind of went a little bit more mainstream and like maybe taking some donor money or whatnot.
100%.
And like he calls people, like he calls a spade a spade. I do think there's some shady shit where he like changed the tweet one time and he said his producer, but his producer is like his wife or something like that. Like,
yeah, that was what Sean exposed. The YouTuber named Sean did a video. And that was honestly one of the big red flags for me with Jimmy Dore, because like I said, I've always been a big fan of Jimmy Dore. We've made a lot of content on this channel where we're talking about how Jimmy Dore is correct on certain issues. But to be honest, the way he handled that situation with Sean was one of the first real red flags for me. And if anyone's not familiar, as you referenced, Corin, YouTuber named Sean, who makes video essays, put together this expose essentially about how Jimmy's, segments about COVID were pretty dishonest, and specifically one segment where he actually edited an article to make the opposite point that the writer was intending. The writer of that article, the author, actually had to come out and say publicly, this is a misrepresentation of my journalism. So that was obviously a red flag, first of all. But instead of just taking the L and moving on and apologizing, I did not like the way that Jimmy responded to that. For one, he blamed it on his producer. He didn't take any personal responsibility. He basically just said, this was my producer's fault, my dumbass producer who I've now fired. But then, so that's already kind of gross. You should take personal responsibility, and the buck stops with you. It's the Jimmy Dore show. So
100%.
take responsibility. If anyone else that was your enemy, so to speak, had done that, you would have called them out relentlessly for it. You'd probably still be bringing it up to this day. But because it was you're going to blame your producer. But then what really annoyed me about that was that he proceeded to imply that Sean, the YouTuber who exposed him in the first place, was somehow CIA, was somehow funded by, the CIA to try to take down Jimmy Dore. Because, the government is just so afraid of Jimmy Dore and what he represents that they, funded this random bread tuber in order to expose something. So again, instead of just taking the L, moving on and apologizing, he had to smear this guy, throw him under the bus, continue to lie to his audience. It really grossed me out.
I think he's again, he's definitely got some screws loose, but I think with that like comedy background, like he's got some sense of like showmanship where he realizes a story that he can just milk for the audience and like for content and for back and forths to like keep him not relevant, because he's relevant. He's got a substantial
but keep his views up. Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, we used to talk about that all the time. If you look and like, this is the fucking Vanguard, right? Everybody knows what kind of content we make. Like, I'm just saying, if you really look at through reality, looking at it, it's like when he was beefing with TYT, 250,000 fucking views and upload, right? Like that's tough to turn away from. So you're gonna try and stir that pot. You're gonna try and keep that feud going. You gotta throw some meat in there, throw some seasoning in there. You know what I mean?